The story begins as a young girl is left all alone after a group of goblins attacked the carriage she was riding on. The goblins go to end her life as well, but a mysterious boy arrives to protect her. Years later, our protagonist, named Laust, is asked if he would like to join a girl's party, and everyone around is shocked to hear that the girl wants to team up with him. Laust has shocked himself, so the girl points out that his sign is clearly asking to recruit people to his party. This girl insists on joining him, and she declared that she is a martial artist. Laust introduces himself as sort of a healer, but an employee of the Adventurers Guild rushes to stop the girl from making the biggest mistake of her life. Her name is Amherst, and she warns the girl named Narcina not to join Laust's party. Amherst reveals that this guy has been given the nickname the Incompetent Laust. He is a healer, but he only knows the beginner magic spell called Heal. He is a labyrinth orphan, and just like the rest of the parentless children, he grew up as an adventurer. However, even after all these years, Laust can't even use an area heal or a high heal spell. He is known by all as an absolute failure of a human being. Despite all this, Laust managed to join a party called Lightning Sword. That is, until recently, when he was kicked for not being able to use detoxification magic. Everyone knows how incompetent he is, so no one ever invites him to join their parties. Amherst warns that Narcina will never be able to make any money if she parties up with Laust, but Narcina reveals that she already has plenty of money. Amherst panics when she sees how much cash Narcina is just carrying around, and she explains that most of the adventurers in this town are gangsters. Everyone looks pretty menacing, so Amherst tells Narcina to never show such large amounts of money. Narcina graciously thanks her, and Amherst can tell that she is pretty new to this whole adventuring thing. Amherst offers to introduce Narcina to a nice beginner's party, but the little girl says that she will have to charge Narcina for her services. Narcina surprisingly rejects the scammer because she has been wanting to join Laust's party for a really long time. Laust and Narcina go to sign some papers to make the party official, and Narcina stares a hole right through Laust's skull. She admires him a lot for some reason, and she's relieved to finally meet him again. The little weirdo is startled when Laust asks her to sign her name, but she gathers herself. Laust pays the guild fee and their party is now official outside. Laust explains that no one has ever explored the deepest part of the Marmot Labyrinth. There are still many mysteries inside, and no one even knows who the final boss is. Many adventurers have dreams of finding vast riches inside, so they have gathered a Marmot city, making it one of the largest cities in the nation. Laust is a psychopath, as he wants to go to the labyrinth right this second. So Narcina wonders if that's really okay since they just formed their party a couple of hours ago. Also, before leaving, Amherst told me that he could only take Narcina to the grasslands because she is still a novice. The labyrinth leaks magic power to a few places around it, and it causes monsters to spawn there. The grasslands are one of these places, but only weak monsters spawn there. It's the best place for beginners, but it's too big and it's hard to find monsters. The labyrinth is the exact opposite, as it's filled with monsters, and that's exactly what Laust is looking for. He assures Narcina that they won't have any problems as long as they don't go too deep inside, and he can handle things that get bad. Laust is strangely confident for a healer, but he says it's nothing, and they continue on. When they arrive, Narcina insists on taking that she is a martial artist, so it's only right for Laust to back her up from behind. As the healer, Laust is happy with her confidence, but he wonders if she can really fight. Narcina quickly proves herself as she beats down a group of goblins, and Laust is thoroughly impressed. He explains that the guild buys the magic stones dropped by the monsters, and that's how most adventurers make their living. The stones are valuable because they can be used for many things, but Laust points out that she should know this already even as a beginner. Unfortunately, the magic stones of goblins aren't worth very much, so they will have to defeat more powerful monsters if they want to make the big bucks. The two agree to go deeper into the dungeon to earn more cash, and Narcina vows to protect the weak healer if anything happens. Moments later, Laust is the one protecting Narcina as he stops her from stepping on a trap. He shows her where her grave was just about to be, and he explains that he was able to save her because he noticed the different colored tiles. Finding traps is usually a thief's job, so Naru wonders how Laust was able to do it as a healer. Laust simply explains that he's been an adventurer for a really long time, so he has picked up a couple skills here and there. Deeper in the dungeon, the two spots a half-work, but it shouldn't be at this level of the dungeon. Half-workers are known as mid-level demons, and their robust bodies make them very difficult to beat. Their power is equal to monsters on the lower levels of the labyrinth, so they should never appear in the upper levels. Narcena wonders if this is the time to run away, but Laust is confident that they can defeat it if they work together. Laust doesn't want to force her, but she surprisingly agrees as she trusts his judgment. Narcena starts off the fight, but she is startled when her first attack makes her feel like she is kicking a brick wall. Luckily, the beast is pretty slow, but Narcena still ends up taking some damage. The fight quickly goes bad for her as she is cornered, but the beast surprisingly isn't able to finish her off just then. Narcena can only stare in amazement as she sees that Laust rescued her just in time by plunging his sword right into the orc's chest. Laust is glad to see that Narcena is okay, but she can only wonder if Laust is really just a healer. Laust brushes the question off again and explains that his years of working as an adventurer have led to him learning a few close combat techniques. Narcena says that his attack didn't seem like a simple technique, but Laust distracts her by pointing out that she is injured. Narcena isn't too worried about it, but Laust is a healer through and through, so he knows that even the smallest wounds need proper treatment. Narcena insists that she is okay, but Laust heals her anyway. The magic stone left by the orc is much bigger than the goblins, and it has way more magic power too. This means that it will be worth a pretty penny. Laust explains that he has seen what he wanted to see out of Narcena in terms of her fighting ability. They have also earned a good amount of money, so they can head home now. But he leaves the decision to Narcena. She says that she can still fight, so the two go on to do some more hunting afterwards. Amherst is amazed to see how many monsters they defeated in just one day. Amherst realizes that Laust must have taken the newbie to the labyrinth. And what's worse is that them having an orc stone means that he took her to the middle level. Laust corrects her by explaining that they only went to the upper level. The orc shouldn't have been there, but this matches up with what the other adventurers have been saying as well. The higher Yupas have also been very busy recently, so Amherst thinks that something is happening in the labyrinth. Amherst's mood quickly changes as she is happy to pay them for their stones. Narcena is weirded out by how excited she is. So Laust explains that guild employees get a pay raise when they buy magic stones. This is only true when it's the adventures they are responsible for, which means that the more they make, the more Amherst makes. Laust is shocked by how much the payout is, and Amherst has to remind him to split it with Narcena. Laust would never forget, but he is surprised because even after splitting it, it's still 10 times more than he has ever earned. Laust goes into deep depression when he realizes what this means. Amherst explains to Narcena that he was just getting fooled when he was a member of the Lightning Sword Party, and they never gave him his fair share of the rewards. Narcena is infuriated by this, so she demands that the guild do something. The decision is up to Laust, so he decides to just move on because he is happy with his new party and he wants to forget about the old one. The pair leaves, but a mysterious man watches them. Later, the greedy Amherst happily counts all her earnings, but she is startled by the man. Handsome is her boss, and he just hopes that Amherst didn't help Laust find a new party. Amherst explains that she doesn't have the overpowered convincing ability that it would take to convince someone to join the Laust party. Instead, there was just a girl that saw something special, and Laust, handsome, seems to know who the blue-haired girl is, but it concerns him for some reason. That night, Laust is surprised to learn that the word of him having a new party member has already spread around the city. The incompetent Laust is pretty well known, so him finding a fool to join his party is a big deal. Laust prepares to reserve a room, and Narcena is startled by the thought of sharing a room with Laust. Laust decides that they should sleep in separate rooms, but this seems to disappoint Narcena. The two head to their rooms for the night, and Narcena thinks back to when she was healed. It turns out that Narcena was the girl in the carriage, and thus was the guy who rescued her. She was thankful after he healed her, but Laust apologized for not being able to do more. Narcena was strangely positive, even though I'm pretty sure that the goblins ended the lives of everyone else who must have been in the carriage. She didn't seem to care, and just vowed to become an adventurer. Narcena wanted to join the last party one day, and she promised to protect him. Narcena has been training very hard since then, and she has waited a long time to be with Laust. When she heard that Laust was kicked from his party, she immediately rushed to the city. The little stalker is pleased to see that her plan has worked perfectly. She formed a party with Laust, and they even defeated an orc. She is doing it all for him, so she becomes depressed when she thinks about how Laust didn't even recognize who she was. That's understandable since her appearance has changed so much. But that isn't all that has changed. Laust is much stronger than before, and he doesn't seem to need her protection. Narcina snaps herself out of her depression and reminds herself that she promised to protect Laust no matter what. The remotivated Narcina prepares for bed, but one thing still doesn't make sense to her. She can't figure out why people would call Laust incompetent when he is actually really powerful. A look back shows how Lost Old Party was in really bad shape after getting wrecked by a fearsome dragon. Laust healed the girl, but he could not detoxify her ailments. He assured her that the poison would go away if she just rested for a bit. But this just upset the girl. The party began to fall apart because the leader needed them in the fight, but the girl was in no shape to battle. The group continued to argue because Laust told them that they would need antidotes, but they couldn't afford any. The leader called Laust a useless piece of trash, and he told their mage to attack with all the magic she had. Her fireball only infuriated the terrifying beast, so the leader became frustrated by how incompetent the entire team was. He realized that no one would be able to lead a group of losers, so he retreated while recommending that everyone else do the same. The mage immediately took off, and Laust helped the injured girl. Afterwards, Laust was kicked from the Lightning Sword Party. He took all the blame for them failing to defeat the Hydra, and he was kicked for being a flawed healer. Laust pointed out that they actually failed because they were all partying the night before, but this just led to more arguing. The leader decided that the maid would choose who was at fault, but she was intimidated, and the blame was put on Laust. Back to the present, Laust wakes up and thinks about how that wasn't the first time something like this happened to him. 6 years ago, Laust's title as the most incompetent healer had already become well known. However, Laust never gave up on wanting to become a great adventurer, a party he offered to let him join, so Laust eagerly accepted. Unfortunately, it turned out that they didn't need a healer at all. What they wanted was living bait to attract the attention of monsters. It's common for a labyrinth orphan like Laust to be used as living bait, but he wasn't even good at that, and the party was eliminated. Laust always hated pain and despised death, but when he saw a young girl in danger, he put all that aside. Till this day, Laust isn't sure why he went to help her. He fought the goblins the best he could, but he eventually got knocked out. When he woke up, Laust realized that he was not the one that saved the girl. It was a group of knights, and this meant that he was still an incompetent person. However, this was not how the little girl saw things. She thanked Laust because if it wasn't for him, then they wouldn't have survived long enough for help to arrive. Laust healed her, but the girl was horrified to hear how poorly he was treated. Her sympathy made her cry for Laust, and she decided something. She vowed to become an adventurer herself so she could team up with Laust and protect him. The girl was from a noble family, which meant that she could never be an adventurer. Laust knew this well, but her words still encouraged him, and he decided to continue trying to become a great adventurer. He eventually found a teacher and started training. He only learned the most basic healing techniques, but he also acquired many other essential skills for adventurers. Eventually, Laust gained confidence that he had become a great adventurer, and this is when he joined the Lightning Sword. Laust credits the little girl because her words kept him from giving up on becoming an adventurer. He just thought about her now because he was thinking about giving up again after getting kicked from Lightning Sword. Laust is glad that he didn't give up because then he never would have met Nauru. Laust and Narcina come to see him, and the two go to get breakfast. After that, they head to the labyrinth, where they plan to go even deeper inside. They arrive at a teleportation service, and it's Narcina's first time seeing one. Every labyrinth has one, and Nauru wonders if it can send them anywhere. Unfortunately, Laust must tell the clueless girl that teleportation circles can only take them to other places with the teleportation circle. Narcina thinks that teleportation circles should just be set up directly inside towns, but she realizes that this would make it easier for monsters to attack people. Laust must correct her again, as he explains that monsters can't even use teleportation in circles. The reason teleportation circles aren't in towns is because the skill required to create them was lost hundreds of years ago, and there is no one that can make new ones. The two use the teleportation circle, and they arrive in the middle level of the labyrinth. The monsters that appear here are very powerful, so they will have to be careful. They eventually run into some monsters, but Narcina's attack doesn't work. Laust explains that it's because she is fighting a lynch, and it doesn't actually have a physical form. It's a type of monster that transformed from a spirit, so physical attacks are ineffective against it. Monsters like this will be tricky for people like them who can't use magic, so he thinks they should run. Narcena refuses though because she is confident that she can defeat it. The two come up with a plan, so Laust gets the Lynch's attention and lures it towards Narcena. With extreme training, some humans can manipulate the power of keys in their bodies. Martial artists like Narcena, who have practiced for years, are able to do this. This key allows the user to even attack spirits like the Lynch. Narcena uses this technique and absolutely destroys the Lynch. The two heroes celebrate, but Narcena is hurt. Laust uses the magic tool that enhances healing effects, and he heals Narcena. The magic stones found by adventurers eventually end up in the hands of craftsmen, who turn them into magical tools. The Lynch they just double-teamed has left the magic core, and Narcena wonders how much it will sell for when they return to the guild. Amherst is once again amazed and grateful for the stones that our pair have brought her. After receiving a surprising amount of money, the duo heads back into town. They stumble upon a large argument, and Laust explains that a lot of adventurers have been getting into altercations recently. Lots of troublemaking adventures have been showing up, and it's starting to disturb the peace of the town. Laust determines that there's nothing they can do about it, so they should just splurge on a fancy meal. Their waitress wonders if Laust can really afford such an expensive meal, but he just tells her to pipe down and get him some beer. Narcena wants to indulge as well, but a child waitress explains that they don't sell alcohol to minors. As they feast, Narcena decides to ask about something she has been wondering. She saw a really tall structure in the town, but it has no entrance or windows. It doesn't look like a monument, and there are actually several in town. Laust doesn't know what they are either, but he did ask some of the townspeople before the craftsmen told him that they are the ones building it, but not even they know what it is. What's even more strange is that no one knows who the client is that is paying for it. The blueprint for the structure and the payment was brought by an agent, and even behind that agent was another agent. There are a string of agents involved, which makes it very clear that the person behind it all does not want to be found. The structures aren't really bothering anyone, so the people don't really question it. Laust thinks that they should be making a city wall instead, but Narcena likes the city better this way. Laust points out that they are vulnerable to an invasion, but Narcena surprisingly says that there is no need for protection. There are more adventures in this town than any she has ever seen before, so thieves and monsters would have no chance during an invasion. Later, the two had to sleep for the night. Narcena wants to say something to Laust, but she ends up chickening out. Narcena thinks about how she wanted to share a room with him, but she just can't get herself to tell him. Laust, meanwhile, thinks about how nice it is to be a team and end up with someone. He wonders if the girl he met years ago will show up, but either way, he credits her for helping him get this far as an adventure. The next day, the leader of the Lightning Sword introduces a new healer to the team. The girl introduces herself, but the others aren't very enthusiastic. The leader is extremely positive, and he declares that they will surely be able to defeat Hydra this time. Elsewhere, an ominous man is told that someone called the Sleeping Beauty is in a certain town. Handsome is the one giving this information, and he reveals that the Sleeping Beauty has teamed up with Laust. The man is concerned because they are running out of time, so Handsome must kick Laust out of the city immediately. Later, the Lightning Sword group spies from afar on the Hydra that defeated them once before as they plan their new attack. The leader is eager to avenge the party's past defeat, and he explains to the others that he and the healer shall attack head-on, while the rogue slips around the back and the mage supports them with magic. Lyra, the newly recruited healer for the group, rejects the idea because she can't possibly be expected to fight on the front lines. This surprises the rest of the party. Their old healer had been more than capable of taking on the frontline role, which shocks Lyra even more when the group points out that Laust was the one that managed to sever the Hydra's head the last time they fought. Lyra can't possibly be expected to compete with that, and the leader tells her to stay back so she can just focus on healing and dealing with poisons. This leader is determined to be victorious, even without Laust. One way or another, the Hydra is going down. Meanwhile, at the guild hall, Lustanaro is turning in another impressive haul of loot from the dungeon. Amherst wonders if all these riches are really coming from the lower levels, and if the two are putting themselves in unnecessary danger. However, Rouse assures her that their small two-man party is playing it safe on the easier levels of the dungeon. Amherst suggests that they grow their party a little, and by doing so, grow their profits as well. Her intentions aren't selfless at all, because this will also benefit her. Pockets agrees that it might be a good idea, but decides that now is not the right time. He's happy with the way things are for now. They collect their earnings and realize that with as much money as they now have, they can afford to rent their own house. Most well-off teams rent houses as their strongholds, storing loot and valuables that would otherwise not be fit stashed away in a simple apartment. Plus, as Amherst puts it, a dingy hotel room is nowhere for true love to blossom between party members. While Naru's dreaming of all the possibilities, Laos is reminiscing about his old party stronghold and how he was forced to sleep in a cramped storage room. Our boy Laos likes to remain positive, but he's really had a rough time. Speaking of rough team, Lightning Sword is having a hard time themselves. Their fight with the Hydra went pretty poorly, to say the least. Bruised and battered after their failed excursion, the team is frustrated by their failure, at least the ones who can still stand. Margulis is furious and confused, smashing his foot against the table as he struggles to understand why they can't beat the Hydra. Meanwhile, Lyra's busy detoxifying the injured Amira while the others bicker. They soon begin to realize that maybe Laos, their useless healer who would complain but still obey, might have been more useful than they gave him credit for. Margulis decides that he'll just have to go and ask Laos to come back to the team. After all, who could possibly say no to joining the illustrious Lightning Sword? A little later, Lyra's awakened by Amira, who's feeling much better after being healed. Throwing open the curtain, she offers to get the Mage a bite to eat. While rummaging around for some food, she discovers Siberia and Margulis have disappeared and wonders where they could have gone. It turns out that the two of them have gone to find their old teammate. Margulis, a truly shameless man, brings the offer to Laos at the guild hall as if it were a gift, while laughing and pretending their past abuse was just a minor misunderstanding. It becomes pretty clear that Margulis must have put all his skill points into gaslighting. He makes excuse after excuse about the team's poor treatment of their ex-teammate, and he promises that things will be different now, even going so far as to throw their new healer under the bus, calling her nothing but a useless woman. To the surprise of everyone, Lost actually thanks Margulis, before another word can be said through overhearing all this, has had enough and runs over to intervene. There is no way she's letting a sleazeball like Margulis steal her partner away. Laos calms her down when he explains that while he might be thankful for the invitation and doesn't harbor any hatred for his former team after what they did, he still cannot accept he will not be rejoining Lightning Sword. He already has a party, and he's quite happy where he is. Margulis can't believe what he's hearing. He assumes that this blue-haired vixen must be manipulating Laos for him to say such things, and he blatantly accuses Naru. This ends up being a step too far for the Banished healer. Insulting his party member was a big mistake. Laos, no longer his amiable self, grabs Margulis and warns him that if he dares to harm Naru, he and Lightning Sword will be sorry. Laos and Naru then leave the disgruntled and slightly shaken Margulis fuming. He rails at Amherst to find him a new party member who can help them fight the Hydra. He needs someone strong and capable who can stand with him on the front lines. This is when a mysterious new warrior emerges and offers his services. Unsure but desperate, Margulis draws his sword in order to test the stranger. Despite Amherst warning that there can be no fighting in the guild hall, Margulis charges headlong at the masked man. In an instant, the leader of Lightning Sword is disarmed with embarrassing ease. Victorious, the mysterious masked swordsman reveals his name to be Sig, and it's enough to convince Margulis, so he welcomes him to the team. With Sig's help, they will certainly destroy the Hydra once and for all. Later on at the inn, Sheila knocks on Laos' door. Peeking out of her room, Nara was nervous that the other girl might be making her move on Laos before she does. It's a small relief when she lives there merely to inform the duo that they have guests waiting for them. It turns out that it's the rest of Laos' old team, Amira and Lyra. The two ladies are worried that round 3 with the Hydra won't go as well as their leader thinks, and they have come to's laws for his help. He was strong enough to cut off its head last time, so surely if he's there, he can help defeat the beast without anyone else getting seriously hurt. Naru brings up a good point when she wonders what is keeping Amira and Lightning Sword. Obviously, no one on the team is having a good time, so why stick around? The Mage explains that while Margulis has his faults, like being a lying, cheating, cowardly, no good, rotten two-timing son of a gun who doesn't even brush his teeth, he's still their teammate, and she believes in that loyalty. This statement enrages Naru, who points out that Laos was also her teammate, yet she still treated him so badly. It's enough for Amira to break down in tears over the guilt she feels. Nouru is right, she knows she did Ralph's dirty, but she was scared that if she didn't follow Margolis, she'd be kicked off the team, the first and only team she had ever been a part of. She begs for forgiveness, and Lyra tries to convince Laos that the mage is sincere, remembering how she called out his name while tossing and turning and her poisoned sleep. Laos, calm as ever, comforts Amira and accepts her apology. He lets her know that there's no ill will between them. But that said, he's not coming back to Lightning Sword. It's a bit bittersweet moment, interrupted by Miss Mary the cook, as she brings an extravagant lunch for the team to enjoy. In particular, she thinks the little mage needs a bit of fat on her bones, or at least a smile on her face, and her cooking can provide both. Using the distraction, Lyra rouses Naru to shuffle off to the side to discuss things in private. Naru thinks Lyra and Amira should just leave their team, but it's not so easy. Laos, remembering the things Margolis said about their new healer, warns her that if she stays, she's in for a rough time with Lightning Sword. Amira won't abandon her party, and Lyra won't abandon Amira, which means that they're both stuck in their predicament. It's a tough situation, and even Loss is feeling conflicted. It doesn't seem like there's anything either party can really do. Returning to their base, Lyra's introduced to their new party member. To her surprise, she recognizes their newest teammate immediately, meaning that his little Phantom of the Opera mask didn't help much. She calls him Sieg, but Margolis corrects her. This is actually Sieg, a completely different person. Lyra is in full one bit and demands to know what's going on. Sieg does his best Kenshin Hamura impersonation as he tries to play it off. But when Lyra points out that his sword is stolen and belongs to one Mr. Ronaldo loses his composure and explains that he inherited this blade from his master. Now, how would he know who Mr. Ronaldo, even if they've never met before? This guy shoddy covers is blown, but Lara gives up and walks off, letting C keep his charade a little longer. Besides, maybe having him along won't be so bad after all. As the storm gathers, both parties venture forth, neither sure of what lies in store. I appreciate you viewing my anime recap, Unruly Family. Please let me know what you think about this anime recap by liking, sharing, and commenting. And please subscribe to the channel to help us reach 5,000 subscribers.
Take